And it sounds like a bougie conversation, like a middle class conversation, but it's not. It affects all of us in so much as this is a real academic conversation about something that is impacting. And it sounds like a bougie conversation. Yeah, it's impacting a very pivotal part of us as a us, Black college students. The narrative of criminalization is being put on this. And you can see it in a lot of spaces, but there's a big academic debate about it. Well, back in 2010, when I wrote this, it was responding to that conversation as it centers around hazing and the idea of violence in these organizations. The way that I take it in this conversation in this book, it's not as serious as the real conversation it's talking about, but it shows how the people who are actually involved in that are living, and how the business and the problem of the businesses doesn't really describe how Black people are living. What it is a story about a member inside of it and what he has to go through. Going through this, what's happening is Black people are criminalizing themselves. By the way, it is a story about a member inside of it and what he has to go through. Going through this. Hopefully, those who aren't aware of the conversation are at least entertained and engaged with a new perspective. And that's why those who aren't aware of the conversation are at least entertained and engaged with a new perspective. And that's why.
So can you talk a little bit about the character in the book?
Well, the main character is Aiden Chance. He's a member of the fraternity, and he's an advisor. Through his eyes and through his experience, you learn how all of the pieces of this puzzle fit together. You find out how the administration is involved in Black fraternalism. You find out how undergraduates are involved in fraternalism. You find out how graduates are involved in it. You find out how multinational insurance companies are involved in what is going on the day-to-day college campuses. And the way that I characterize the idea of pledging, I take it as like Fight Club. If you remember that movie.
Right.
Where the way it's being characterized in the media is that it's bullying and elitism. Some guys standing on high saying, the only way you can get in these organizations is if we beat you up. That's not really how that goes.
Right.
If you watch Fight Club, it was a mutual contract. I'm knocking at the door. I'm waiting to get into Fight Club. Rule number one, you can't talk about Fight Club.
Right.
But it's a conversation. It's something that, whether I want this to be happening or not, across the country right now, this is spring, there are a bunch of lines about to go over in all of these organizations. Not all of them are pledging. However, hazing was made publicly illegal by white people, like punishable, either through criminal and civil procedure in 1991. After a kid in Atlanta got killed. However, to this day, you still have hazing cases across the country. Something didn't work.
Right.
They come up with all these rules, and it's supposedly every fraternity and sorority will tell you we do not do this. However, why do these cases keep happening? Somebody's not addressing how Black people really act toward one another.
Wow.
Business doesn't align with the way the people really are.
Can you say that one more time?
The business doesn't align with the way that people really are and really interact with each other.
Okay.
What's really going on supersedes that. If you look at the formal organizations as corporations, and that's what they've become, they're protecting their corporate interests over and against the interests of their membership, who are their clientele base in a way, but at the same time, their biggest problem. If
Wow.
right now, if somebody got caught hazing, say I was the advisor, say some kids who were under my charge. When I go home after 5, I ain't thinking about no work. These kids, college is their 24-hour life. So they go out and haze somebody at night. If those kids get caught hazing, they might get, if they were actually doing it, they might get an assault charge. They might got kicked out of school. However, me, who ain't had nothing to do with nothing, all of the legal responsibility goes off on me because they're my charge. I could lose my house. I could lose my job. Moreover, I could face civil and criminal prosecution.
Right.
Because what happens is, Trahern, if you hurt my kid and you're part of a school, I'm not going to sue you. You ain't got no money, but that university does. And the university is going to be like, oh, no, not us. They're going to say it's those organizations. And those organizations have been on the hook. If you look at the literature, millions of dollars have been paid out for this very issue. But it's created this jumbled mess of 2 different narratives. It's almost like a civil war in these organizations, or at least that's the way I characterize it. There's the corporate thing going on, and then there's the street thing going on.
And it,
2 things ain't aligning.
And so are you saying the corporate thing that's happening and the street things that are happening, is this happening in the fraternity, or is black, is black fraternity good? Is it healthy for black people, or is it bad from the book's perspective?
It's good from the book's perspective, but what the audience should walk away with is a question mark that they've had, but with a better understanding of what it is they thought. In African American thought, there's 2 ideas of fraternalism. One is just mimicking white people and some bougie stuff. The other is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And there's evidence of both. You can't deny, however, if we're looking at blackness as a whole, that this is part and parcel of it, and a very important part of it, which was strategically designed, right?
Yes,
to fill some type of social, cultural void in, we're going to say, the bougie classes, the elitist classes, as they were perceived at the time. And I'm drawing this from one of the books that my fictional work actually, it talks to. It's a book called Black Greek 101.
Okay.
Of Walter Kimbrough, the president of, I believe, Dillard. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and he goes back in the history of all of these organizations, linking them to this common bougie purpose of strategically creating a social network for black people, for black college graduates. And at the time, it's kind of a practical idea. If you're in the South and you got to go to the North or the Midwest to get home, you kind of need somewhere. You kind of need your own underground railroad. Like, especially if everybody, if you've ever been to college, once you graduate, them first few years be like, those are the Hunger Game years.
Right.
This is strategic sense, especially as blackness is organizing itself in the ways it's organizing itself at the beginning of the 20th century. However,
coming up out of slavery, Reconstruction.
And like literally reconstructing ourselves after Reconstruction. I mean, beyond the political designation, I'm talking about over and over again, really trying to build ourselves. Remember, we were fractured since slavery, and during slavery, we weren't taught to work together. We were taught not to work together.
Yes, sir.
I was taught, if I came to your town and I don't know you, I got some suspicion, fear, and hatred for you, and I don't even know you. We see that to this day.
Yes, sir.
These organizations theoretically was designed to cut through that in a way. However, we know what the history has been. It's been elitism and branded elitism. But if you've met anybody in these organizations, and we've all been touched by it. Not just saying that as a person, like your favorite school teacher, your favorite elected official, your favorite coach, were more likely somewhere in there. Your mama, your daddy, your aunt. That had something to do with blackness and the way we've shaped ourselves and the way it shows up. Having this conversation is a way of having a broader conversation about blackness. I'm only talking about a little sliver of it, but if you read it, you can see the broader connections.
Oh, this is a great conversation because we were just having this conversation, and I was just on a meeting earlier, and they were talking about the judge that's up for nomination. So it's like a network of people around the country that are about to advocate on her behalf. So they were talking about the HBCUs and things like that.
It's
so
a Kamala Harris strategy.
Right.
Remember when Kamala Harris was up for VP and she was being vetted, it was her HBCU. Okay, there's a whole bunch of factors in play. But her HBCU-ness went up with the other woman's Ivy League background, right?
Right.
What they start leaning on with Kamala Harris, what gets her over the hump, is that HBCU connection to Howard and that AKA support, which is international. They really did some, at least from what I saw perceptually, visually, like in the social sphere, social media sphere, they went hard to advocate for her as an organization. That's our girl. But that mind state, that political mindset being what it is, being strategic what it is, as it is, understanding the value of Black women to the Democratic Party's success, if success is to be had. Boom. Okay, let's use that. Make sure we got that. And don't get me wrong, she has all types of credibility issues within the African American community. However, within that core demographic, and not saying that all AKAs like her. I'm not saying that. But if you look at the organization, I ain't lying, I ain't wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So now keeping on the book, so fraternity, and then you said it talks about Black male leadership.
Well, the way that I talk about this person's position, the main character's position, he's in a leadership position, and he sees his role as advisor, as a person who is whatever little time and responsibility he gets to have in life. He's developing the kids under his charge as leaders. But if you watch his story, he gets to touch on a lot of different leadership archetypes through his travels. Like he's having one-on-ones with the president of the school. One of his fraternity brothers is the sheriff who arrests him. One of them is a professor. Like you get to see all of these different Black male archetypes talking about life, like through their little lens, by the people he comes in contact with. And that's why I say, like, it's actually touching on larger conversations. Or that's the way it does it.
So I just got one more question. We have Jennifer McPherson here. She's running for Minnesota State Senate. She grew up right near in that neighborhood we were in. So and we got Minister Toya Woodland, and they if they had a question they wanted to ask, and then after we're finished with you, we're going to talk to Ms. McPherson about her campaign too.
Okay.
I was like, but one question also I had, since Drumline, and what was the Spike Lee movie?
School Days.
School Days. Haven't really seen a lot of movies about Black fraternities or the Black college experience. So can you just chime in on that a little bit?
It comes in fits and spurts. mass media's agenda is never to show us in a light where we are organized and educated, or even the complexity of us as Black people. Especially since since the dawn of media, I teach it. But if the genre of Black Greek organizations has been in the media lately, but if you look, most of the stories are centered around hazing, and they follow that drumline narrative of exclusive antagonism and characterizing the students, whatever organization they're in, as violent. Like they're perpetuating violence. There are a few different novels about hazing. There was I think it was a Netflix. One of those shows did a show about Black Greek hazing, and then there's another one that kind of touches on it in Our Kind of People.
Okay.
Our Kind of People is actually if you read the book, it's a very deep history of Black elitism. But if you watch the show it uses that as a jumping off point, but it goes off into this stereotypical fantasy high Black drama conflict, which doesn't necessarily characterize the form and function of these organizations and our Blackness fairly, if you ask me.
Right. I just and I've been having this because I think I'm kind of where you're at. Oh, also a different world kind of went into the Black college experience. And
remember when Dwayne Wayne pledged?
Yeah.
Drumline formula. You're getting bullied. You either in or you out. The cool kids, the nerdy kids. That's not what it is. If you've ever I don't know, better yet, I don't know everybody's experience.
Right.
However, I've been down here in the South for 30 years, almost as long as I was in Minnesota. And I've been around this culture and the people in it. Anything that you get going on in Black America, you see. Like you got Kamala Harris, but you also got a hairdresser. And they might be at the same spot doing the same thing. Like if you look at these organizations, they do represent, I understand the elitism argument, but I also, from personal experience, understand the diversity of us that shows up in these spaces. And it complicates that elitism argument.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know it's just that, different clubs for middle class Blacks, even, that may not have a college degree, but there's still a sense of fraternity, a sense of belonging, a sense of pledging, or a rites of passage that you still have to go through, even as a laborer or a fellow traveler or what have you.
Well, that's part of what I'm getting at. Like what you're seeing showing up here is what just would show up in anybody's space as they create a rite of passage. Remember, we didn't have, because our culture was ripped from us and we had to piecemeal it back together.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of different things, and we still do a lot of different things to piece culture back together.
Right.
In whatever fragmented ways we do that. I'm not saying everything is right and everything is permissible. However, a lot exists. And if you look at it with a narrow lens, you will not understand it. You have to take it for how it takes itself to be able to understand it.
We have Jennifer McPherson here. Do you have a question for Mr. Collins? You guys might know each other too. I'm not sure.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. She's actually a Brown, so.
Yeah, McPherson is my married name, so I'm a Brown. So you probably grew up with my older siblings.
Probably.
Yeah.
I grew up on Ashland, Eaglehart, Hague, and Fisk.
Yeah.
Like we were that traveler family. I went to Western and Central and Highland.
Yeah, all my siblings went to Webster, and I went to East Side School, so I started at St. Anthony Park, then went over to Mississippi. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
I
it's
did,
kind of
okay.
different for me.
You went to Mississippi. When I was born, I lived in McDonough Projects, in the project right next to Mississippi. Like you got to go through that ditch, then you go to Mississippi.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Did you have a question for Miss
well,
McPherson?
I like the book, and I love Black authors.
Thank
So I probably want to get a book. So how would I get one?
you. You can get one off of my website, armandocollins.com.
Okay.
ARMONDO Collins COLLINS.com. It's right
Oh,
on the first page. It'll take you to an Amazon page. You can get it as an ebook through Kindle, or you can get a paperback edition.
okay.
Miss Woodland, did you have a question for Dr. Collins?
I know I wasn't here during the whole interview. I think he wrote a book
Yes,
about fraternities and sororities.
yes,
Am I correct?
yes,
And you were promoting those.
yes.
Yeah, no. I have a question.
Y'all,
Congratulations, though. I'm gonna get your book and I'll read it, and then maybe we'll do this again, and I'll have better questions.
That sounds like a plan.
I
Okay.
got one more, and then I want you to tell us how we can get this book, and then we're gonna start with Miss McPherson about her campaign. You had why is it important to write about Black male leadership or Black men, Black boys, etc.?
It's important to write about all Black people. I chose this particular perspective because the way I'm writing about it, I'm writing about all people, all Black people, metaphorically, even though the Black male experience doesn't encompass all of us, nor does this narrow conversation encompass all of us. But if you look at the way the character is constructed and the way the story is constructed, you see a little bit of us, all of us in it, or you're able to see a lot of different perspectives of us in it. What I try and do in anything that I write is write for multiple Black perspectives by taking one central character and looking at life through their eyes, but not just through their eyes, but through their interactions with other Black people around them. And whether Black people are the express theme of what I'm writing or just the implied theme, you know that that's there because those are the conversations I'm bringing up. Usually what I do is use the novel to talk about larger social issues, either that I've written about in essay form or I've taught about in classroom lectures or something I've lived through.
So we have a question from Texas. What should someone who never joined a sorority or fraternity know about them? And that's from Bernadine in Texas.
Know that these organizations touch every aspect of Black America from top to bottom. We've all been impacted by the people in these organizations, and they're important to our overall culture. Whether you went to school or not, whether you've joined one of these organizations or not, this is part of us. It's like the barbershop, church. These are one of the institutions that we've created from scratch for the benefit of us. Where anyone sees conflict in them, point that out because that's part of our growth. Not these organizations. I'm talking about Black people's growth. What you're seeing as a flaw in these organizations is a flaw in us.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Hey, that's a great answer. And if somebody wants to get a hold of this book, so just a real quick, you have some other titles about Black men or Black. Can you just tell us some of your other titles and where people can get them at?
Yeah, I have a really good essay on Jack Johnson, the first Black heavyweight champion, in the Handbook of Research on Black Men. It's talking about the media assault on the Black male image in the 20th and 21st century, criminalization of Black men. strategically to overlay a narrative of criminality on whatever personal behavior decides to get scrutinized. You see it in the public sphere, starting with Jack Johnson, the first heavyweight. But you also, the way I talk about it, you can see it developing over time in other spheres, and I connect it with criminology data that shows that African American men are unfairly targeted by the criminal system.
Right.
Via this narrative of criminalization.
And that's also available Amazon.
On Amazon. If you go to my website, armandocollins.com, on the first page, you'll see a link to the book, Book Bruz, which is a fiction book, and you'll see a link to the Handbook of Research on Black Males, which will take you to my article on Jack Johnson and the media assault on Black men.
Thank you so much for please, we're encouraging everybody to order this book, support Dr. Collins. He's doing great work. He's a great person. I've been knowing him for a long time, and he's doing big things out there. He's holding down the hustle. Just tell us a little bit before you go, just real quick, like in 60 seconds, some of the things you're doing in Greensboro, as far as like running the library and things like that.
I'm an African American Studies professor at UNCG. I'm also the department head of the Digital Media Commons, where we teach students how to use digital media effectively to present. I'm also a self-published author, father, and a member of the NAACP. We just, by the way, got a reparations resolution approved through our branch.
Wow.
The city of High Point in North Carolina.
Congratulations, yo, to the rest of the NAACP around the country. That's the example that we all NAACP should be focused on reparations right now.
Which needs to be a key line, a top line item, because it affects everything that is an agenda item for education and advocacy in the NAACP.
Yes,
or that's how we're approaching it.
Man, thank you so much. If you want to stick around, you're more than welcome. But thank you for your time.
Thank you all for your time, and it was pleasure being here. Have a good one.
You too. God bless, man. I'll be in touch soon. We'll have you back soon. Let me know when the next title's coming out so we can help talk to you about that.
Definitely. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Peace. And that was Dr. Armando Collins talking about his new book, The Bros. Bruz, please go out and pick that up right away. Right now, I'm really excited to talk to a candidate for Minnesota Senate, Jennifer McPherson. Miss McPherson, please say hello to the Frogtown community.
Hey, Frogtown. That's where I grew up. So I always got love for the Frogtown.
All right. Can you lean a little bit? When you're ready, whenever you're ready. There you go. I do that all the time. So you're running for, can you tell us what seat you're running for right now?
The Minnesota Senate, District 67.
Okay. And can you talk about what's your platform or some of the things you want to run on?
Well, first thing is basic equality for the Black community. We should be having, community stores, shops, like the Hmong Village. We should have one of those for our community, where we can have indoor vertical gardening so we could sustain throughout the whole year. We need shops within those Black-owned shops, get people into owning their businesses. We need to have an education center for our children. At the rate that our kids are being pushed out of public school, we should be able to take our children and place them where we want them to be.
Right.
So, the medical field is so messed up right now. I feel like with the debate on abortion is coming down on women.
Mm,
We're losing our medical rights.
okay.
Um,
What is the current, who's the incumbent that you're running against?
I don't want to mispronounce his name.
Okay.
So, Mr. Fong.
Okay. So what does he do? What would you do differently than what he's doing right now?
I would focus on the whole community. I don't see, because I live on the east side, I don't see any improvements from when I moved to my location. I've been here almost 3 years. Streets are raggedy. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be improved, and we're just not. I don't see the east side benefiting from anything. I see us being defunded and not being taken care of. So that's one thing that I would push for, is for a better control of the east side. Because throughout the history of St. Paul, the east side has been filled with wealthy people. And now we're not so wealthy anymore. So our community is lacking.
Mm.
And it's not fair. Housing. We need better housing. The rent control was not a good thing to do. And people are suffering because of that. We have people facing eviction because they can't afford the rent increase that was put in place before the rent control even happened.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question to you. So voters in St. Paul overwhelmingly voted to get this rent. I mean, they went through all the hoops and hurdles. They got the signatures they needed. They got it on the ballot. The people voted overwhelmingly. Boom. Now, if you were in the Minnesota Senate, how would you have voted on that?
I'd have voted the same way I voted. No. Because like Dora Jones said, it was not put out there in a way that citizens could understand. And the only reason why I voted no is because I did my research and went on YouTube and found out that it was a program that they did a long time ago.
So you would be, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It cost people their housing. The rent control was in New York, and a lot of people lost their housing because they wasn't wealthy enough to go through the increase that was put in place before it happened. And the same thing happened in St. Paul. The rent control starts in May, and people are already raising their rent before that goes in. And I know about 5 families facing eviction because they can't afford that.
Okay.
And rent help is closed.
So because its landlords started raising the rent before it happened, that's would be why you would vote no.
Yes, and also because in the long-term effect, it's going to run down the conditions of the housing. I mean, look at what's going on now with the housing. The landlords don't do any upkeep. They do no maintenance, no repairs. Some people are even right now during COVID saying because of COVID, we're not doing any repairs except for major repairs. Like if your heating goes out, then they'll come out and repair it. But, as a renter, that's just telling me that I'm not even important. So when this rent control goes up and you want to remodel a house, you're not going to get your dollars back. You're not going to make that back from a 3% increase. So now you're just going to make the minimal repairs, and it's going to pass the inspections because houses has been passing inspections for years. There's no real accountability. And when tenants get mad and withhold their rent because they have legal right to withhold rent, but then they don't know that they have to go down to court and file more fees in order to do that and put it in escrow. So they just withhold the rent, and then the landlord goes to file eviction and the judge sides with them, even though there's no repairs being done to the house. So with this increase, with this rent control, that's going to be a ripple effect. So the housing conditions are going to get worse.
Wow. That's an interesting concept. How do you And that's interesting. We had the first hearing on reparations this week at the Minnesota Capitol. If you were in the Senate, how would you be yay or nay?
I'm for reparations. You know, if you look back in history, Abraham Lincoln gave us reparations.
Mm-hmm.
The president after him, Johnson, said no, took it back and gave it to the white people. So
Right.
it's about time that that check is delivered to the black communities.
Wow.
We get our money back. You know, we've been working this long. If you can tell me that there's a $350,000 gap between blacks and whites, then that should be a $350,000 check for every black American in the country.
Now, so I know you've ran for school board before, but you would have just been over. Oh, that bill was the Minnesota Migration Act. We're gonna talk about that soon. That bill is 3850 in the House File 3850. I believe me and Miss Woodland will discuss that like the last 5 minutes of the show. But that bill is House File 3850. There's also a Senate version, I believe it's 3981. So if you're in the Senate, we need the Senate to hold a hearing on the reparations, the Minnesota Migration Act, but we'll talk about that later. But as a Senate, if you were elected Senate, looking at what's happening in New Prague with some of the racism happening in sports, how would you approach something like that?
Well, first of all, it's disappointing that they say that this stuff was unfounded. Because we know how you guys are with video. We know how they are with videotapes.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't just one school; it's plenty of schools. So there needs to be real consequences behind that, because that's hate. That's a hate crime.
Yes, ma'am.
And it needs to be treated like a hate crime. And you know, Biden hasn't signed the Floyd Act, and now it's the Emmett Till Act is ready for him to sign, and I haven't heard that he signed it yet.
Wow.
And as black people, we've got him there. We've carried him throughout his whole career. So that's hurtful.
Do you feel like he's done enough for black people during his first 2 years as president?
No, I don't think he's done enough, because he didn't get much attention to Daunte Wright. Daunte Wright was a child that was shot.
Right.
Daunte Wright is a young man who, during this day and age where people are saying ban the police, get rid of them, take them out of schools, they're too dangerous, he did not acknowledge Daunte Wright to the full capacity that he should have.
Agreed.
So he has not done enough. He won't even after that, he didn't sign the act. So no, he's never going to do enough until he signs both of those acts and passes reparations.
Wow. I hope you guys are listening. My last question, the housing situation on the east side. No, I got two more. The gun violence. As senator, how would you approach that on the east side? Last night, it wasn't just the east side. I mean, there was shootings on Avon. There were shootings on Marshall. There were shootings on Jackson. This was happening last night. How would you address that as senator?
We need to get as creative as we can get. Honestly, like, I'm not going to say we need tougher penalties, but we need the prosecutors to take this stuff serious. You know, a lot of these kids are displaced from their natural community. I grew up in Frogtown. I now live on the east side. That's not supposed to happen.
Right.
You know, that's all displacement and gentrification. A lot of us are related and don't even know.
In St. Paul, that's true.
It's, you know, you displaced us, You keep displacing us, and then you wonder why the crime is so bad. You know what I'm saying? Black people need to understand we're not even supposed to be fighting against each other. That's one thing. And it came from slavery when they made our black men fight against each other
Mm,
for their entertainment.
mm.
So if you're in these positions where you can make a difference and you're not, it's because you're being entertained. So I mean, you pass all these other laws to put our people in prison, but you're not passing any to keep them out of prison. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even be opposed to paying these people to stop shooting. Give us 30 days with no shots, and we'll give your group or whatever $1,000. Y'all go make your rap videos, and you'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to do something to get peace in these streets instead of just saying lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. That's not solving anything. And when we start talking about locking black men up and just men in general, child support has a lot to do with that, because it's not that they get locked up for their child support, it's the fact that they get locked up trying to get the money to keep up with child support.
Wow.
So,
Facts.
and child
Yeah.
support was designed for divorced families, not people who dated, not people who never lived together, not people who accidentally created this child together. But we need to come up with something that's going to help children, not penalize parents.
Wow. That's a different approach. And that, I think that's an approach. Yeah, that's a good campaign pitch right there that I know black families need to hear. Man, so just real quick to continue on that, and then just let us know how we can get in touch with you. That's why this bill is HF 3850 is the Minnesota Migration Act in the Senate, where if you were to be elected, it would be 3981 is the reparations Senate bill. And just going off that, reparations, part of reparations is family reunification, because when slavery ended, we were left with nothing. Some black people starved to death, literally, seriously. And we were looking for, this child might have been on this plantation, one child or an aunt, an uncle. We were spread out and separated. So family reunification is a big part of reparations. And thank you for just knowing that instinctively. If people want to get a hold of you, volunteer for your campaign, and all these things, how do they go about doing that?
Right now, you could just hit me up on Facebook, Jen McPherson. I have a webpage coming out; it's still being worked on, but going back to the removal, the broken families, is that I personally feel that feminism has been weaponized towards black women and encourages us to throw our children's fathers away. Because I'm from the streets. I'm not just, I'm not a career politician with a spoon, golden spoon in my mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I'm a real person.
From St. Paul. Yep.
Yeah. So I know how it is. I have kids, and me and my husband we had kids before we were married. So they tried to tell me I had to put him on child support. I went directly to the child support office, and child support said, we don't know nothing about your child until you fill out the papers. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
Wow. So yeah, hey, in about a month or so, just real quick, thank you for coming on and discussing this tonight. One more time, the website will be up shortly this week. The Facebook page is Jennifer McPherson for.
Oh no, just my name right now.
Just
just my personal page.
Just contact Jennifer's personal page if you want to get involved, volunteer, and whatever else. And because she has a serious campaign that she's running, and she has some great ideals, and we look to have her back in about 3 weeks. to keep showing us the progress of the campaign. Thank you for taking some time out your Sunday night to visit with us and help us talk to Dr. Armando Collins and talk about your great campaign that the East Side needs right now.
Thank you. Thank you. And can I just say real quick, um, my campaign is basically for everybody because you can't end poverty until you end poverty on Black people. So once we get lifted out, you get lifted out too. So
indeed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And that was Jennifer McPherson. She's running for Minnesota Senate in District 67, and that's over there on the east side. So we're real proud of our sister, and we're gonna have her back in about 3 weeks. She said some great things that were new that you haven't heard a lot of politicians talk about before. So, and that's what Dr. Armando Collins was talking about. He was talking about discourse. In the domain of discourse is about what's acceptable to talk about in society. So that's why it's important for Black people to have our own media so we can decide what's important for us to report on, what's important for us to discuss, and what issues matter to us instead of having another entity push what's important to us on us. So there's a Supreme Court Justice nominee starts next week. How you feel about that, Ms. Woodland?
Well, on the one hand, I'm really excited that a Black woman is being nominated for the Supreme Court. On the other hand, I'm not so excited that with the fact that she's a Black woman who is not really working in the best interest of Black people. Who's not, her cases have not exemplified the fact that she is pro foundational Black Americans and having our best interests in heart. So I'm torn because she looks like me, but she doesn't think like me, or she doesn't have the love for our people as it would seem to be in her with the cases she's presided over have the same love for our people as I do. So I don't really know what to do with that. Like the time is, well, I do know what to do with it. The time has come. We have to stop just accepting people because they look like us. We have to start pushing the envelope and saying we will not accept these people unless they have our best interests at heart. Unless they're for reparations, against mass incarceration, against the school to prison pipeline, against medical apartheid, against those things that are ailing our community. The fact that 1 in 4 women die in birth, in labor and delivery, that's an issue. We need people who are speaking out for our issues and standing with us for the betterment of foundational Black Americans. So that's how I feel about her.
I'm a little torn myself right now, and but I know we got to kind of decide soon here. But I mean, I think, well, we got a week or so to think about it, you know. But I know people are going to be reaching out to Bernadine asked, is she foundational Black American? And then I think she said all skin folks ain't kin folks, and I agree. But we won't, you know, so we're kind of torn right now on that. It seems like you're kind of where I'm at. We're trying to figure it out. But there was some history made. We've been talking about HF 3850, SB 3981, and you testified at one of the first reparations hearing at the Minnesota State. I think that was the first actual, like that kind of hearing at the Minnesota State Capitol about reparations. And it was really exciting. And you testified. Could you want to talk about that experience real quick and just what you were thinking or even about what you spoke about?
What was I thinking? I was thinking this is history in the making. This is going to be life-changing for foundational Black Americans, ADOPS, American descendant of chattel slavery here in Minnesota. Nothing like this has ever happened in Minnesota, and I was allowed to be a part of that. And I was just really in awe of God and the work that He's done. The work that He's doing, the way that He's using you, Mr. Cruz, to push forward these reparation bills. And so I was just really um, honored about just being there. Another thing I was thinking about is the fact that we need we need reconciliation. We need health reconciliation. We need family reconciliation. We need financial reconciliation. I was able to share some of the points, some of the median incomes of Black families and white families here in Minnesota. As I just talked about, 1 in every 4 women are dying labor delivery here in Minnesota. Um, because of medical apartheid. We're 13% of the population, but we make up for 53% of children being removed from our homes here in Minnesota because it's more profitable to see a Black body in the system than it is to see them go through school. So there's a lot of things that I think will come with reparations. People think it's all about a check. Yes, you got to cut the check. Reparations without a check is not reparations. But a lot of things, there are other things that we look forward to. We look forward to bringing families together. As Ms. McPherson just talked about, we've been displaced. It's time for us to get to know who our family is. I think I got family here, and I don't even live here. I mean, I wasn't even born here, right? So it's time for us to get back what was so wrongly taken from our ancestors.
No doubt. Also, I want to really thank Representative John Thompson for having the heart and the courage to go forward and introduce HF 3850 and 3981, which is a reparations bill. His staff helped us write that up. He introduced it, and he's pushing it unapologetically. And so we really want to thank Representative John Thompson for having the courage and the heart to do what's right for foundational Black Americans or American descendants of chattel slavery who reside in the state of Minnesota. So that was a big piece of history, and he did that. I when I testified, I was able to talk about, I could see the Capitol from right here. Cassaville Boyer was one of the architects and builders of the Minnesota State Capitol. So I want to talk about our contribution, not only how we've been wrong, but how much we've contributed, not just to Minnesota, but to America, and that we're owed a debt for that. And that 300 slaves also built the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and they were never paid. So just hats off. Also, my sister Delshia Perry, mother of Hardell Sherrill, gave a very powerful testimony. We have professors, Brother Nick Muhammad, he's running for Ramsey County Commissioner. He runs the Black Civic Network. He gave a powerful testimony. We had professors came and gave a powerful testimony. It was really powerful. And
Brother
we're really,
Jeremy English.
Brother Jeremy English.
Testimony.
And just think, also we want to thank the chair of the Judiciary Committee and others who had the heart and courage to make such an important hearing happen at the Minnesota State Capitol. Thank you, Ms. Woodland, for coming on the Trahern Crews show. You have a show coming on this week, I believe Tuesday, that people can come. I think if that will be on your YouTube channel, so check her out.
Yes.
Shout out to Bernadine and Alma down there in Texas. I want to thank Brother Dr. Armando Collins for coming on the show tonight. I want to thank Jennifer McPherson for coming on the show tonight. We'll talk more about the Minnesota Migration Act and cover the hearing more in depth next week. So call your Minnesota legislator and tell them to support HF 3850. Call your Minnesota senator and tell them to support Senate Bill 3981, the Minnesota Migration Act. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to another edition of the Trahern Crews show right here on 94.1 FM, Frogtown Tuned In Radio. Keep it locked right here. Also, to watch the rebroadcast of this program, go to www.blacktvs.com. or download Black Watch Television on your Roku channel. Keep it locked to WFNU 94.1 FM all week for music, sports, entertainment that's important to you. All right? Peace. Oh, also, the St. Paul Recovery Act. If you have not yet, go to stpaulrecoveract.com and take the reparations survey today. Be on the lookout for more news about the St. Paul Recovery Act later in April. Should hear some big announcements on that. The city of St. Paul is the biggest city in America to pass the reparations legislation so far. So stay tuned and keep leading, Minnesota. All right? Peace.